order the meeting of the Delaware County Board of Elections for August 27th, 2024. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for excusing my tardiness. We do have participating electronically Chair Ashley Lunkenheimer and Board Member Scott Alberts, correct?
That is correct.
We're both on there. So the first matter is the consideration of the agenda. We have the Director of Elections report, which he will report on preparations for the November election, the pending precinct polling place relocations or locations, and that includes Radnor 6-2, Aston 1, Upper Chichester 1-1 and 1-2, Lansdowne 9, an address clarification for Upper Chi 1-1 and 1-2, the address clarification for Aston 1, Chester City 1-2 and 1-8, Chester City 2-4 and 5-2, Springfield precincts 1-2 and 1-3, and Middletown precincts 4-1 and 4-2. We'll discuss the status of the drop box in Sharon Hill. It does not, I don't believe we have any campaign finance waiver requests to consider today.
We do not.
That would be the contents of the agenda today. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
And a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the agenda is approved. It's now time for public comment. If you're here for public comment, please just come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Charlie Alexander. I'm from Marple Township. I was just wondering, is this a rescheduled meeting or an emergency meeting, or is this a regularly scheduled meeting?
I believe that this is the regularly scheduled monthly meeting of it with the fourth Tuesday. We did have one earlier this month in August, but I believe that was really just a replacement for the July meeting.
So I just want to make sure everybody knows that this is in violation of the Sunshine Act. Basically, PA code 1006. All regular meetings need to be announced 3 days ahead of time via written notice inside of a regularly scheduled newspaper, as well as inside of letting the public know via the website. That's what I was here to tell you guys. And this is why people, they don't trust the election.
Hold on. Well, I'm holding a legal notice from last Thursday's Delaware County Times.
It was in the Delaware County Times?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that. I missed that.
apparently. If you want a copy, here it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's why I was asking.
Good morning, Karis Coker, Concord Township. The notice, what may have been in the newspaper, but apparently it didn't go up on the county website.
Also
until
not true.
yesterday.
Well,
It was on last Thursday and Friday. I mean, I don't know where this is coming from.
Go
So
ahead, Ms. Cook, finish your remarks.
Oh, it's just that when I saw the notice online, I mean, I went looking for it and it said today, which to me seemed to indicate that it had just been posted today, according to the search. But independent of that, we'll leave that aside. I was looking through the past minutes, and on April 16th, 2020, Board of Election meeting, Mr. Gerald Lawrence, who was chairman at the time, said that without elections, there would be no democracy. And that is absolutely true. I'm sure you would agree. Without honest elections that accurately reflect the will of the people, the consent of the governed, there is no democracy. Several things have been of ongoing concern to me regarding our elections. One was the notice. That was not the first time. There was another time that it was like a 24-hour notice, but on this time that wasn't so. But according to state law, all voting operations are to be in the county seat. including the storage facility for the voting machines. That's at the warehouse. And by law, the return board, according to state code, is to meet at a convenient place at the county seat, not in Chester. Those are issues of concern, but my greatest concern is the absence of any oath of allegiance for county employees involved in the elections. I requested, and Mr. Allen granted copies of the oaths for the persons who worked at the warehouse and so on and so forth, and in the Bureau of Elections. And I was frankly quite shocked to find that their oaths are only to follow the instructions of the Board of Election, essentially. It goes into some more detail, which I will not read them aloud for sake of time. However, there is no oath, like the return board oath is very detailed. It says that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and so on and so forth, and that I've not paid or so on, taken any money to impact my decision. Why is there not such an oath required of every single person involved in the courthouse or in the election process at the wharf and at the warehouse? And furthermore, even the some of the election staff oaths do not include the kind of language that should be included in it. And some of the copies of oaths that I received, I realize they're a copy, but it's very obvious that these are electronically generated signatures and circling of where this person's obligations and duties will be. We need a wet signature on oaths of loyalty to the Constitution of the state.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. Let me address, I guess, a couple of the issues raised. One was the notice for the meetings. As Mr. Allen pointed out, our meetings are advertised in the Delaware County Daily Times. For the first meeting of the year, the open records or the Sunshine Law provides that it must be advertised at least 3 days in advance. And after that, the requirement is at 24 hours. Typically, in almost every situation, we advertise about a week in advance of the meetings. And we also typically announce at the previous meeting when that will be. The Sunshine Law also requires the agenda to be posted on our website 24 hours in advance. I know it was posted yesterday, as I took a look at it yesterday to see what if any changes to the agenda there were, because I was not in the office on Friday. So I looked at that yesterday, and then I spoke to Mr. Allen yesterday. So we appreciate everybody being vigilant and making sure that, we dot our I's and cross our T's. But typically, again, to my knowledge, our meetings have been always in compliance with the Sunshine Law. And then in terms of the oaths, we can maybe ask Mr. Parks to take a look at that and report on it down the road. And, but the members of the election board all signed oaths of office when we were appointed and had our first meeting in January of 2024 this year. We did that, and then those oaths are actually recorded with the Recorder of Deeds, I believe. So they're there, and the staff members and the workers for the election board all flow statutorily from the members of the Board of Elections, and so they sort of sign on to what we do. Pennsylvania law does not require, every municipal employee in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to sign a oath of office that has to be recorded with the Recorder of Deeds. Typically, that's left to the policy-making individuals and those key employees. And I think here we do, like I said, the board members, Mr. Allen, the other directors that we have here. So we appreciate very much those comments. And I certainly think, and as you can tell by, the staff that's here today and always at these meetings, they're very attentive. And I think they want nothing more to ensure the safe and fair elections that are conducted here in Delaware County. Is there any further public comment?
My name is Gregory Stenstrom from Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. Just a matter of order to correct a licensed attorney. The Pennsylvania Constitution and law states that all employees will sign a loyalty act, specifically a loyalty act, not an oath of office. You've already gotten notice on that. So has Mr. Park, so has Mr. Allen, in multiple court filings. And I know you're well aware of it. The main reason I came here today was I listened to the comments of Mr. Allen at the last BOE, talking about certification and machines and V cards and blah, blah, blah. We have a federal lawsuit right now against Delaware County. It's in the federal court. And regarding the certification of machines, the validation testing of those machines, hash code testing, and also logic and accuracy testing. And the premise of our lawsuit is that we provided evidence that that's not happening. The response from the county, and specifically Mr. Parks, who's sitting to my right, was that it hadn't been done to our satisfaction. The response to our suit was it hadn't been done to our satisfaction. Our response to the judge is that whether it's done to our satisfaction or not, there's federal and state laws, certification laws, chain of custody, a number of different things that are required that the county is not performing. We're going to sort that out in the courts. But one other thing I wanted to bring up was we recently have come into receipt of the 2020 mail-in ballot envelopes after over almost 4 years of trying to get them, court cases, right no's, and so forth. And I know Mr. Allen is going to object, but in reviewing what was provided, there was a number of PDF files that were provided from which we've extracted the mail-in ballot envelopes. There were 130,000 approximate envelopes. I think it was 129,210 votes for Biden and Trump during the 2020 election. 130,000 approximately. So after 4 years, you've produced 97,500 of those envelopes. We went through them. We've double checked them, Mr. Allen. We've gone through them. We've given you the link that makes it available to see what we have. But you're about 34,000 short after 4 years. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. And just wanted to make sure that it was clarified for the meeting that the county's in violation of the testing for certification and for the LNA testing and for validation. Thank you.
Right. Any further public comment?
Good morning, Board of Elections. This is Joy Schwartz from Drexel Hill. Recently, two different people presented lists of unqualified voters that are on the voter rolls in Delaware County. And I understand that Mr. Allen does dispute some of those individuals and went through some of them in the last meeting, showing that the county had tried to take them off the voter rolls. However, there was also a statement released by the county recently that Delco Council says that there have been no previous complaints in previous years about illegal migrants on the Delco voter rolls. However, just because there have not been complaints does not mean that they are not there. Also, with 4 years of open borders, 15 million newcomers by some estimates, 15 million illegal migrants already here, and 20 million legal non-citizens. And then you have NGOs urging newcomers to vote that they are citizens and they are entitled to vote. It would be pretty much a miracle if there were no non-citizens on the Delco voter rolls. Yet, I believe Delco just recently decided that it would not remove any more voters from the rolls prior to the election. So under the National Voter Registration Act, the NVRA, the county cannot do a systematic voter roll purge within 90 days of a federal election, but there are exceptions to that. The exceptions include voters that were confirmed to have passed away, to have died, voters that have moved out of a jurisdiction, and that's confirmed. If an individual voter requests to be removed, that can be honored, that request can be honored. These are all exceptions that can be made. States can remove voters who have, or jurisdictions can remove voters who have been declared ineligible due to criminal conviction or mental incapacity. And also the jurisdiction is permitted to remove voters that are there as a result of a clerical error. And all that can be done within the 90-day period. So I hope that these exceptions would be honored and that there would be maintenance of our voter rolls continuing up to the election based upon these exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. I'll ask Mr. Allen, because one of the statements was the county has decided not to take anybody off the voter rolls. At least
No.
from the board level, I'm unaware of that. Is there, can you clarify that if that's correct or not, or?
I'm not sure what the speaker is referencing, but for the sake of argument, I don't know if they were referring to the 90-day quiet period before a federal election. And perhaps there was a reference to no more systematic removals. However, I can tell you, and Crystal and Michelle can confirm that list maintenance work is done every day leading up to and even on election day, as we receive calls where there may be the discovery of an error as miniature as a condo unit number, an apartment number, or a transposition of a number in the address from 1112 to 1121. So the idea that it's stopped is just patently false. It would definitely be news to all of the individuals who work day in, day out in our voter registration department, doing changes and removing people from the rolls where necessary and where legally they can. So that's just not the case. Secondly,
Jim, before we move on from that, can I just also add that up to and on election day, the folks at voter registration are taking stock of information about deceased persons, because that issue has to be addressed up through election day, have to live to election day for a mail-in or absentee ballot to count. So that's another example of the ongoing maintenance of the voter rolls right up through election day.
Is there any further public comment at this time?
My name is Josie Sostek. I live in Brookhaven, Pennsylvania. You did mention that the list maintenance work is done daily, and we appreciate that. I work with a small group of people who focused on the 14,000 or so voters who've moved out of the county, the state, or even the country. We've submitted those records to you guys in, I think, June in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. And even though this list maintenance work is being done daily, we did find records that went back to 2019. So what we're discovering is obviously a lot of records that are actually a lot older and maybe were missed, but there are many, upwards of 14,000. In addition to those, we're not even looking into the 2,100 that are listed as living at a vacant address. We have 6,700 voters that are listed as living at commercial addresses. Now, some of these are college campus buildings, so we have to let those go, but a lot of these are actual businesses. And then there's about 10,000 what are called invalid addresses. A lot of those are wrong apartment numbers, non-existent addresses, et cetera. And due to the fact that these people have moved out, more than likely they have registered in their new place, and nobody is permitted to be registered to vote in 2 jurisdictions. So it's another reason to clean them up. I was just wondering, and I was going to ask, but you answered already, are outdated voter records being removed? Some that might have slipped through the cracks that aren't part of the monthly national change of address records that I know your people get and are working hard on. But after that month is gone, it's not like they get a cumulative list later. They only have the monthly list to act on. It seems like a lot are missed when there's 14,000. I'm just saying. Another thing that was brought up at the last meeting, although the girl didn't make the point very well, was hand counting ballots. She kept saying paper ballots, paper ballots. We know the ballots are in paper. We would like to know if there is a way that we could present to you a method that has been proven throughout the country and being used right now, and people are being trained on a 4-person ballot counting method that is just used as sort of a mini verification of the count that already goes on. We're not replacing anything. it's something we could do as a demonstration, maybe the next meeting, if you will allow it, or we can explain how it works. But that was what my two concerns are, cleaning up the voter rolls and possibly doing hand counts to verify ballots that are being counted the day of election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, so as the speaker indicated at our meeting of a couple few weeks ago, we had extensive discussions. People presented, members of the public presented to us regarding the voter registration rolls and the explanation in terms of where we were looking at that. Like I said, when I received that just before the meeting, I explained it. I and other members of the board asked Mr. Allen to sort of obviously couldn't look at all 14,000, the day of, but to take a sample and sort of let us know, where those stood, and he did. And, you can go back and look at that. It sounds like you've already either attended the meeting or looked at it, but the members of the public can go back and listen, to that explanation. And so we've spent a lot of time and energy, the board members, talking about registration and trying to make sure our lists are good. I just think back to, as you were speaking, I used to have a different role here, and I recall at the end of 2019, there was a lawsuit filed by a nonprofit, non-governmental organization against the county, challenging, that the voter registration rolls were not properly maintained, that we didn't take people off and those types of things. So I was leaving office at the time and new administration was coming in. And so I, quite honestly, I left it, for them to take care of. But my understanding is the outcome of the litigation was that after you go through the discovery period where they're able to take a look at everything that they did and take depositions, talk to people, do whatever the case might have been, was that the organization ultimately agreed to dismiss its case, against the county. And I'll say that organization is not one that would have, just dropped it, in terms of their philosophical bent. They would have typically pursued it, had they believed that there were issues. So the system itself is certainly built in favor of the voter and to make sure that, everybody's given every chance possible to be registered, to stay registered to vote. And it is a laborious process. Once we get notice that somebody may have moved or whatever the case might be, to remove them from the rolls, especially as it relates to federal elections. But we do go through that. And as Mr. Allen said, Ms. Winterbottom and her staff, do it every day, and we'll continue to do it up through the time of the election this year. But we certainly always, appreciate, I appreciate, and I'm sure the other board members appreciate, members of the public, letting us know, the status or where something comes up.
I just real quick want to know, are they going over the list that we sent and removing people or not?
Well, they're going through the process again. I don't want to repeat what was. We went through the process at the last meeting, but were it that simple that somebody can just come in off the street with a list of voters that they think are no good, and to go through it. They are going through it. The complete list they looked at. Like I said at the last meeting, there was a report where it's just in various stages of it. A lot of those voters would be inactive for the federal election. So there is somewhat of a backstop. It's not perfect. I'm just speaking for myself and not the other board members. I would, if I was a legislator or governor, I'd vote for ID, voter ID, but I know that's not the law. But the backstop is they get listed as inactive. And if somebody were to show up to vote as that person, they must fill out and sign an attestation or certification that they are still registered, that they still live at that place. So that's somewhat of a backstop to the process. But like I said, it is a laborious process. If it was just that, hey, we meet with a local group and we could take 14,000 people, if we can verify that, that's simply not what the law provides.
Just for the public's knowledge, when we provide this information, we think about the voter ID, where they move to, where they move from.
Right. We addressed all these issues at the previous meeting. We addressed this with the person who presented this, Dean Drabelbas, for a 2.5-hour meeting. Crystal and I sat down with him. And the various voters that he's brought to our attention, we've taken as far as we can. We're not allowed, what he's asking, and quite frankly, what you're asking again today is against the law for us to do. We can't just unilaterally take people off the rolls. We can and have sent them notices as prescribed by federal law. And, you know, unfortunately, or fortunately for the voter, you know, who might still claim residence here at some later date, under federal law, this is long established federal law, 31 years ago, the National Voter Registration Act. If they do not respond, we have them in this basically like limbo stage of inactive. And we can remove them after 2 federal election cycles. But in going through the list, which we don't have legal authority to just take a list and start going through, the objection process was noted. You can object under state law against an individual who lives in your municipality, and you do that on an individual basis on a form that must be signed and notarized. Turning in a list of 12,000. And again, we did our due diligence in terms of randomly selecting the top item from dozens of pages, went through them all, and every one of them sat down with Crystal. Every one of them, they were exactly where they were supposed to be in terms of what we could do, either to move them to inactive or cancel them. Some of them had been canceled already. Other ones were inactive, but you know, if they have not responded, that's where we are. All right.
All right.
No, if they fall in the exceptions, we can take them.
All right. Why don't we go back
This has been
Start your
litigated
order
for
Mr. Allen,
31
hold on.
years.
Why don't we, so I think we've addressed that. And like I said, we were, for people that weren't here at the earlier meeting in August, there was a lengthy 45-minute discussion on this topic. And I'd encourage you to go back and take a look at that. That video is available. So with that, is there any further public comment?
Hi, my name's Laura Lewis. I live in Radnor Township. Like in Pennsylvania and other states across the country, voters in Georgia have expressed concern over the use of election machines at the existing voting process. To allay fears of vote tampering by machines and election interference, the Georgia Election Board recently voted to approve rules relating to the tabulation of election results. I propose that the Board of Elections in Delco should consider similar legislation. The legislation is as follows, quote, 1, after each election, but not later than 3 p.m. on the Friday following the date on which the election was held, the board shall meet to conduct a review of precinct returns. 2, after all absentee ballots received by the close of the polls, including those cast by advance voting, and all ballots cast in person on election day, and all provisional ballots that have been validated have been tabulated, the total number of ballots cast by each vote method shall be reported for each precinct. 3, a list of all voters who voted in the election should be compiled, including by category the number of voters who voted election day in person, advance voting, absentee, and provisionally. The list shall be examined for duplicates. The list shall then be sorted by precinct. The total number of unique voter IDs from each precinct shall be counted. The total number of unique voters who voted by each vote method shall be reported for each precinct. 4, for each precinct, the board members shall compare the total number of ballots cast to the total number of unique voter ID numbers. If in any precinct in which the number of ballots exceeds the numbers of unique voters, the board shall determine the method of voting in which the discrepancy exists. The board shall investigate the discrepancy, and no vote shall be counted from that precinct until the results of the investigation are presented to the board. 5, if any error is discovered that cannot be properly corrected, the board shall determine a method to compute the votes justly. If fraud is discovered, the board shall determine a method to compute the votes justly and report the facts to the district attorney for action as required. 6, board members shall be permitted to examine all election-related documentation created during the conduct of elections prior to certification of results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further public comment?
Hi, I'm Nick Manganaro, precinct committee person, Radnor 7-1. My precinct is being impacted by the redistricting of my area. I still have no determination of an approximate date on when that is going to be confirmed, finalized, so I can put together my walking list, know who my constituents are. I'd appreciate an update on that, and any further information you can provide on how that process is going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's, we'll ask the election director to address that during his report. All right, any further public comment? All right, hearing none. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes of the August 12th, 2024 meeting. Members of the board, I know that the minutes have been distributed. Has everybody had a chance to take a look?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 12th meeting?
So moved.
Okay, I'll let you take them on, Scott. We're going to do a bunch, I think, later. So I
right.
second.
All right, the motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes do have it. The Director of Elections report, Mr. Allen.
Good morning. First, to take up the gentleman's question just a moment ago about Radnor redistricting, the last piece that we were waiting for was just received last Friday. The Department of State gave us their analysis of the boundaries and whether they conform to various laws regarding the division between the precincts. They found one exception where they want us to amend the line between Radnor 2-1 and 2-2 to include, make sure I get this correct, Archbishop Carroll High School in 2-2 as opposed to 2-1, so that it follows two street lines as opposed to a property line between Villanova and Archbishop Carroll. Other than that, they've approved it. So we're modifying the maps. We're moving the voters into from the old to the new precincts. We're going to be, we've already been working with the Postal Service on the design of the mail piece so that that is ready to go. So we hope to have a mail piece out, the first of three, to all of the voters in Radnor Township by earlier mid-September. So there's a CoStarz vendor who provides this service. So we're planning on moving on that quickly, as well as different signage that we can place in the community with QR codes that allow people to just, check if their polling place or their precinct has changed. So Crystal and her team are going to now, with the state's approval, begin moving all the voters. The ones who are affected, for the most part, many are not affected. So that's underway now. But that initial feedback from the state only came last Friday, and then the conditional approval came just yesterday. So I appreciate your patience with that. Next up, there are various preparations underway for the November 5th general election. We're set on envelopes. We're set on general ballot design. We'll be printing an 8.5 by 11-inch ballot. We're only waiting on right now on court cases for third-party candidates, for the most part, who filed on August 1, and then there were objections filed. Those then go to court. Then when the Court of the Commonwealth hears it, the losing side has the ability to appeal that if they want to the Supreme Court. So it could be until the middle of September before, it could be the end of September before we have a certified ballot that we can then proceed to test. The reason I want to mention this is that there are a number of disturbing actors out there who are sending out texts to voters asking them if they're registered to vote and if they need to update their registration, or telling them they need to apply now for a mail-in ballot. And I want to caution the voting public. That these links are not necessarily dangerous, but they could be. And if you're in doubt, we urge you to visit the Pennsylvania Department of State website to check either your voter status or to check on your application status. I would not, click on one of those links that come through a text message. It's, we've heard of phishing scams where you get an email with a link that takes you to a malicious piece of software. Well, this is now called smishing. It's from the SMS text messaging, where they're trying to get you to click on a link and possibly give up personal identifying information such as your date of birth, and your social security number or your driver's license number. So again, visit a .gov site such as the vote.pa.gov so that you can check on your status if you're not sure about your registration status or your vote by mail status. So we're going to be working with the public relations department to put out a news release on this, because we're getting a couple of things that are happening separate and apart from the text messages. We're getting duplicate applications. This does not result in people getting two ballots. It just results in us having to go through and process this to make sure that the person hasn't changed anything. So we're right now, for example, we the other day we got about 500 applications. About 40% of them were from people who received an application in the mail from some do-good organization or civic organization or political campaign that says, hey, sign up to vote by mail. And they forget that they did this 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago already for the year. And so, of the 500, only 200, 250 maybe actual applications that we can process. The other 250 to 300 are duplicates that we have to weed out. So those are two things that are going on right now. You can tell we're a swing state because we all get these notices, we all get these mailings at our homes and our phones. Anyway, we just want the voting public to know that they should go to a government website and or just give us a call at 610-891-VOTE if you have any questions about your registration status or whether you've already applied for a mail ballot. So with that, we have various pending polling place relocations, and
first of all,
go ahead.
Members of the board, anybody, before we move on to the polling place, any comments or questions from Mr. Allen regarding the preparations for the November election?
I have none.
No, I have none. I appreciate, Mr. Allen, you explaining that the duplicate applications don't appear to be of a nefarious nature. They appear to be people anxious to make sure that their first application was processed. And although that's unfortunate for the administrative burden it places on our team, you can understand that everybody's anxious to be able to vote in this election if they're eligible and can. So appreciate you clarifying that.
And then my only comment or question really is that certainly the number one question I get nowadays is, when will I get my mail-in ballot? So as I understand it, the process at this point is, as you indicated, that there are still court cases pending, and it really is the independent candidates for president. I think there's a couple of them where there's still litigation ongoing about that. That once that litigation is finished and we know who will actually be on the ballot in Pennsylvania, or at least in Delaware County, then at that point we finalize what the ballot will look like for each precinct. And then you proceed to do the logic and accuracy testing for each machine. And then when all of that is completed, we go to print, so to speak. And after several days, we then get those back, and the mail ballots start to go out. And your best estimate?
My best estimate, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you have one day a candidate withdraws and that clears out an entire court case and the prospect of an appeal. But right now, I would advise the public that the very earliest we're going to be able to mail is toward the end of September. Because as you noted, after it's certified, then we lock down the database, then we order ballots for both mail-in ballots and in-precinct ballots. It takes time for the printers to prepare those, ship those to us. Then we have to test those on both the mail processing equipment as well as the precinct processing equipment. And, we have to make sure that everything works. And then if there's any kind of issue, we have to go back and repeat that process, and we have to, unlock the database and then make any adjustment, and then start the retesting process again. Hopefully that won't be necessary. That hasn't been necessary since I've been here, knock on wood. But in any event, even then, after we've made sure that the ballots are being read properly by the scanning equipment, then it takes another week or so, or week and a half, before that first batch of mail-in ballots go out. So that's why right now it looks like if there's an appeal that goes to the Supreme Court, the very earliest we're looking at is the very end of September. Hopefully that's not the case, but I'd be surprised if one of these cases doesn't drag out.
Mr. McLean, if I may, I just, Mr. Allen, I want to say though, just so that everybody knows, it doesn't mean that you sit and wait for all that to happen before you get ready, because in my role, I'm privy, I think the other board members are privy to the fact that the team is constantly updating and getting ready when there's a change announced, making the adjustments so that we can be ready as soon as we can be, and the courts and the law permits. So I appreciate your diligence and your team's diligence on doing that constantly behind the scenes to make sure we're going to get those out as soon as we can.
Yep. Thank you. Yes. And I thank him. As I said, I want him to walk through the process so the public has an understanding about what happens. I know that some news outlets that I've seen or heard, they talked about something like, mail ballot begins in Pennsylvania on September the 18th. I guess that must be a statutory date where that's the earliest that you can do it. So, but as always, as frequently occurs, I mean, that's typical. The last week of September, first week of October has been our time when the mail-in ballots have been sent out. So just so the public knows, even though you might hear KYW say start September the 18th, we and probably other counties are in a similar situation to get your ballots around that last week of September, first week of October for the first batch.
Especially for this election cycle, because many of the races, if not most of the races, are statewide races. So if there's a tie-up in the courts with a third-party candidate for president, that will impact every county in the Commonwealth. Other types of election cycles, municipal elections like last year, that can be very county specific, because you're talking about local races, and you could have a case tied up in the courts in Montgomery County that doesn't impact our ballots in Delaware County or vice versa. Okay. And you're right, that deadline in the statute is a deadline before which you can't issue the ballots. Doesn't mean you have to issue them by that date. And as a practical matter, most years there's something going on in the courts that would prevent that anyway.
Okay. So board members, I don't know if that generated any further comment or question from you. If not, we'll ask Mr. Allen to proceed with the item 6B, the pending precinct polling relocations.
So the first one, I'd like Jackie to come up and give a report. It's on Radnor Township 6-2. This relates to the redistricting. At the hearing on the redistricting, we heard comments in the court hearing on whether or not it made more sense to do Wayne Elementary. And just as background, when the township was going through the redistricting process, they were torn between Wayne Elementary School, and then the recommendation that they gave to go to the Radnor Civic Association. To the degree that when I received the final report, it had Wayne Elementary School crossed out and then the Radnor Civic Association. So this has been a source of debate for quite a while now in this redistricting process. And so we promised the individual that we would take a look at this. We posted legal notice at the Radnor Civic Association to indicate that we would be considering this polling place change. And we had Jackie and her team go out various times to both locations, assessing accessibility and other factors, how one is in a very narrow street residential area, whereas the other one is public school. So with that, I'd like Jackie Dunn, our voting machine warehouse chief custodian, to give a report.
Okay, as Mr. Allen had said, last meeting, August 12th, I believe it was, I asked if I would have a chance to go out to each location personally and see for myself. I did bring my technician, Marvin, out with me, and I measured the driveway from each location, from the driveway to the entrance of Civic Center, which would equal out to 136.4 feet to enter into the building, and Wayne Elementary School measured at a total of 88 feet. So with that being said, I would like to make a recommendation to move Radnor 6-2 from the current location to the Wayne Elementary School due to the, accessibility of the parking and for the voters to be able to enter. I did send a letter out to the party leaders, and I did post signs, proposal change to be.
Also, in terms of accessibility, I mean, is there more parking at the elementary school?
Yes.
Considerably more. And the accessibility at the Civic Association, correct me if I'm wrong, it's reliant on an adjacent driveway in the adjacent property, and then you have to be able to, if you're in a wheelchair or a walker, you have to navigate up the apron of that adjacent property driveway and then over on the sidewalk and then up to the building. So it's not quite as, they're not equals in terms of their accessibility, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Board members, are there questions or comments or discussion on the recommendation?
No.
I have none.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation to relocate the polling place in Radnor Township 6-2 to the Wayne Elementary School?
This is what I'm referring to, Scott. If you want to, we're
Yeah,
going to do a bunch of these. So if you want to go first, I'll go second.
Sure. So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes do have it.
The second item on the agenda is a duplicate. Actually, we have it lower as item 6. And so I'm just going to take a pass on that one for right now. Same with the third item, which is duplicate item 5. Next one is Lansdowne 9. There was a question about the accessibility. It's at the pharmacy,
Pepper's.
and it was Pepper's Pharmacy, and it was upstairs. There was a slight upstairs area. There was a ramp there, but it did not have a railing, and it was not ADA compliant. So I'd like you to report on that.
Okay, again, I had my technician go out and did a survey. He spoke with the party leader and the property owner, and it will be staying at Pepper's Pharmacy. They are willing to just have the polling location just as you come in. So there will be no stairs at all for anyone to need to go up. So it will be staying at Pepper's Pharmacy.
So at this time, there's no vote needed by the board. We thought we were going to have to relocate that, but we're glad for the voters that we are not.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Dunn, for working that through with the pharmacy.
All right, okay.
The next two are simply, these are the ones I started to reference, Upper Chi 1-1 and 1-2. They voted a firehouse in Booth Wynn. And we received a request that we, because the signage there and the building itself serves as both the firehouse and Leah's Catering. So, we were going to reference only in the polling place list and in notices to the voters, both, so that there's no confusion, to minimize any possible confusion that, if they see Leah's, they might think they're going in the wrong place, or so to be more accurate, we just wanted to send out a notice to the voters in those two precincts with the updated name to reflect both properties.
Ms. Lunkenheimer, Mr. Alberts?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. I know it's funny, even the smallest change requires the approval, so seconded.
So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Those then in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You guys do have it.
Similarly, the Aston 1 change is more in terms of a correction or clarification. It's still at Newman University. It's still at the same location. We're just going to give the precise address on Concord for that. So again, we would be sending notice to all the voters on that.
And we don't need to vote on that, right?
No, I mean, if you want to, you can, but otherwise, I'm just advising the board that we're going to be sending out the notice with the exact name of the building and the street address on Concord.
I agree with Mr. McLean. That seems more of just additional information about the current location, not even the smallest move. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Brian's shaking his head, so he looks like he agrees with us.
purely administrative.
All right.
The remaining items are just an FYI, 1, 2, and 1, 8. We're still, we have a recommendation on that. I'm sorry, that's not informational. This is good news. We had to, on an emergency basis, 2 weeks before the election day, we were advised of a roof hole at the old park building that we had been using in Chester City, and were advised by the city at the last minute. And we were able to relocate them temporarily at the Parkside Firehouse. We've been knocking on a number of doors since then, and Jackie's here to report on progress on that front.
Okay, since the last board meeting, I was able to speak with someone from Stetzer Elementary School. Actually, Olin was knocking on the doors and he did a very good job. To see if they would be able to host Chester City 1, 2, and 1, 8, who already hosts as a polling location. So I sent a technician to go out, which was Olin, to see and to confirm the room would be large enough to host for 2 more precincts. I would like to make a recommendation to move Chester City 1, 2, and 1, 8 from a current location back into Chester City to Stetzer Elementary School located at 808 East 17th Street. Party leaders have been notified and the signs of notice of change have been posted.
Is there a
So moved.
motion to approve the relocation of Chester 1, 2, and 1, 8 to Stetzer Elementary School?
So moved.
I second that, and thank you, Ms. Dunn, for your diligence in seeing that through.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Jack.
The remaining items don't require any action. They're just updates. We received a word from the hosts of the polling place in Chester City 2, 4, and 5, 2, that there may be a desire to not serve as a polling place. So we're going to follow up with that proprietor of Gilbert's Hall. Springfield 1, 2, and 1, 3. Initially, we were advised by the municipality that we were going to have to move out because of construction work. And possibly move out of the township building. and over to the library. We're going to be able to stay. They're going to hold off on the construction work to make sure that there's no confusion for the voters. So that's good news. This was a concern last week, but they've since just yesterday wrote back and said, never mind. We're going to be able to host. Middletown 4-1 and 4-2. We have concerns that have been expressed by the poll workers in one of those precincts about the, for lack of a better word, mustiness of the former library building. And so we're going to resume talks with the township to see if we can't figure, and party leaders to see if we can't figure out whether we can make that site better or whether we need to move it, whether there's other options on the township property.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I've been in there several times and I understand their concerns. It's not desperate, but they definitely, it's not the greatest of conditions in terms of the way it's maintained.
So lastly, the status of the drop box in Sharon Hill. We had the electricians go out. We had freshly charged batteries. It doesn't matter how the solar panels are arranged, whether the batteries are charged or not. That set of devices simply will not function. There are 3 drop boxes in neighboring communities in very close proximity in Collingdale, Darby, and I'm trying to go off the top of my head.
Fallcroft.
Yes. So it's not as though these are all within a mile or so, a mile and a half or less. In the case of Collingdale, it's it's like about a 5-block walk. So and in some cases these are closer to parts of Sharon Hill than the Sharon Hill drop box itself. So we've notified the borough that we will be taking out that drop box and related equipment. So that's the conclusion of the report.
All right. We don't need it to vote or take any action to.
I don't know. I think we've been clear administratively that if we can't get it to work, it's not going to be used. So, and he's gone through the process, Mr. Allen's gone through the process of notifying everybody and finding alternatives.
So we have notified the borough. We had talks before we got the electricians out there, and we notified them again yesterday after we got the results of the tests.
Sounds like there's no objection as an administrative matter. They just proceed that way.
Yeah, I think the minutes of prior meetings would reflect that it's a voted policy of the board to close down locations where the camera's not functioning. So this is consistent with that, and I don't see a need to vote again. And frankly, it would probably the opposite would be true if you wanted to maintain it, notwithstanding the prior voted policy. That would require a vote, I would say.
Right. Board members, you have anything further for Mr. Allen at the completion of his report here?
No, thank you.
All right. The next item agenda is campaign finance waiver. As we indicated, there are none to consider today. Next meeting date would be September 24th, 2024. And that brings us, members, anything that you wanted to bring up before we move to adjourn?
No, thank you.
Mr.
I do
Allen?
not.
There you go. Couldn't hear you there. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So the Board of Elections meeting is adjourned. We'll move to the Voter Registration Commission meeting.
Crystal?
Call that to order. And the first item is public comment. The agenda items today really are just a report of Ms. Winterbottom, the manager of the voter registration and status of the annual voter list maintenance projects. That's the only item on the agenda. So is there any public comment for the Voter Registration Commission meeting?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a correction that in my statement previously.
You need to announce yourself, Ms. Schwartz.
Yes, it's Joy Schwartz from Drexel Hill. I was not saying that the county is not removing those persons that would fall under those exceptions. I was just making a statement that those exceptions exist based upon I guess you could say something that I heard about the county having said that they would stop at this point removing voters from the list. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you referred to the exceptions, and I thought you would refer to, perhaps it was something the county council said, I'm not sure, but it was, I just wanted to clarify that there's been no conscious effort made to say we're just freezing the voter registration list for the next 90 days. And I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Gregory Stenstrom, Glen Mills again. I just wanted to bring up, and specific to the what's going on at the wharf. Mr. Allen turned off the cameras sometime around June. I think we're in election season again. He hasn't given a response yet in terms of when the cameras are going to be turned on for the wharf for public observation. Some years ago, Mr. McBlain promised that the drop boxes would be observed. We still have 40% of all drop boxes in the state of Pennsylvania, which is a mystery to me. 67 counties, and we have 40% of the drop boxes, including, I think, more than Philly. So we still don't have, we have a video, one screen down there that a police officer watches down there. We've already asked and we've stated if the URLs, public URLs are made available, we'll monitor them for no cost for the county. And we'd like that made available to us. The last thing I was going to say is most people here don't know me. I'm here specifically actually to talk to some of you. I've been involved in multiple government fraud and corruption. And some of the people who have been put to jail are Sheriff of Philadelphia, congressmen, senators, mayors, judges. I've been involved in those investigations. And, you know, it's funny, in all cases, they always laugh. They start. And I get the snootiness and the, you can't do anything. And, you know, then I get the threats. And then about 3 or 4 years later, I get the tears. And most of the people who go to jail are the people who are least involved and shouldn't. A peculiar thing happens in every investigation is as soon as they realize, the Sheriff of Philadelphia was the best one, probably example. As soon as they realized he was going to go to prison, and he's still there, by the way, 7 years later. As soon as he realized he was going and people realized it, everyone had something to say. So look around and you'd be amazed how many people start talking and who decides who's not going to go to jail and who's not going to go to jail. And there are people in this room that are going to go to prison. I guarantee it. I've seen it before. Anyone who's smiling or thinks it's funny, I've seen the tears. So we'll see how this all works out. But I want those cameras turned back on, please. And I want an answer to the drop boxes in terms of how we're going to be able to monitor those. Thank you.
Any further public comment? All right, with that, we'll ask Ms. Winterbottom to present her report.
Eric, we have closed out that program. That's that 90-day, that's my role in that procedure, but we'll still receive, excuse me, we'll still receive letters, cancellations, they moved out of state that they send back to us. We do update them after that 90-day, like today, and we just received more. So I updated my numbers. So a total of 2,873 have come back from the overall total was a little over 11,000 that we originally mailed out. all different types of letters. So those letters had to be generated and mailed out before that 90-day. But voters will still send them back, and same with deceased list from Register of Wills will receive, Department of Health applications we received, and we'll still cancel those voters if they're still registered up till election day. As of yesterday, we've processed 41,780 applications. This is the highest number we've seen for a while now. Even I believe it's higher than our 2020 election for voter registration. Voter registration in 2020 wasn't as busy because there wasn't as many registration drives out, but we've seen a very large increase. To date, we have just over 413,000 registered eligible voters. The Radnor redistricting, I did just receive word about that, and I have to put in a request with our Shore system to do a screenshot before I can make those changes. I don't know when all those changes will be finalized for walking lists and street lists to be available in the new precincts. But I expect to start today on making those changes.
Right, great. Members of the board, are any questions or comments for Ms. Winterbottom?
No, thank you for all your hard work. I know, I mean, as you described, it's more than ever before, and you guys are doing a great job. So keep it up, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen?
Everything Ashley just said, that's it. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, no? Okay. Is there anything further for the Voter Registration Commission agenda? Members of the board, any new business you want to bring up?
No.
Nope.
If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.